Good morning and welcome to News Check on this 25th day of August 2021. Hope you're having a fabulous morning. It's time to have a look at what is currently trending and what is currently affecting the country when it comes to the roadmap 2022. That is a discussion we are going to have. Welcome. Remember, you can be part of this conversation via all our social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, because this broadcast is live. Kindly, your questions, suggestions, or even where you are watching us from, we highly welcome that. My name is Njue. Lensa Odingo will be our sign language interpreter for this morning. And it's exactly, just slightly under 1 year, Kenyans will go to the polls. That is August of 2022. But question is, are we ready? Are we there yet? Looking at the previous elections, of course, IEBC has been limping since the last election. Of course, quorum issues that were even brought out by the High Court and also the Court of Appeal during the BBI appeal. But away from that, they have been tasked with ensuring that we have a free, fair and credible election in the year 2022. All the challenges, including the quorum issue, are being addressed, because yesterday the 4 names that were forwarded to Parliament were vetted, and it's only a matter of time before the IEBC becomes fully constituted. But the being well constituted is not the only challenge that is affecting IEBC and matters election, and that is exactly what we'll be looking at this morning. And I'm joined by the program's manager for Elog, that is the Election Observation Group, Marcus Agenga. Karibu sana, Marcus.
Thank you, Ben, for having me here.
And before you tell us exactly what Elog does, let's look at a case study. Zambia. Yesterday, there was a promulgation of the president, or the swearing in of the president. And looking at the Zambian election and the smooth transition, of course, the incumbent, Edgar Lungu, was defeated by Hakainde Hichilema. But looking at how the election was carried out, looking at how he handed over power, the incumbent, is something that could be a case study in Africa, something to emulate, perhaps.
Indeed.
Your take?
I think Africa must be proud of Zambia. That this is the 3rd time that Zambia is having peaceful handover of power, and a number of things can be learned from Zambia, even as we move into 2022 elections. Of course, the newly elected president, this was his 6th attempt to cling power in Zambia. Of course, that gives hope to some of our political candidates who have been vying for a very long time, that there's always hope that yes. If you do things right, you can be able to still get power for our opposition that has never gotten power since 2002. Number 2, the other lesson that we can learn from Zambia is that institutions, if they are properly instituted and if they are given room to work, they will always deliver, regardless of the person who holds those offices. So when you have vibrant institutions, when you have enabled institutions, then not only is confidence of the public enhanced, but also there is this inner disposition to be able to deliver their mandate. So when you have vibrant institutions which are fully capacitated, then you get good results. The 3rd thing that I think we could learn, I think for Kenya, and of course especially for the opposition, that there is some unity. There's some strength in unity, of course, that you see that in Zambia, the opposition saw this as not them versus us, but they said, let us come together, let us bring the change we desire. So when you have an opposition with a vision, an opposition with a purpose and focus, then that coupled with the working institutions will deliver results.
Indeed.
And of course, the other last bit, the 4th lesson is about trust. That the Zambian people trust the institutions that work for them, and that is critical. Our institutions, especially ourselves, we don't appear to trust those institutions that have been put forward as working for us.
Indeed, and we'll touch on the trust issues when it comes to IEBC in Kenya. You are a group that overlooks or actually is mandated to observe matters election. There were election observers, international election observers in Zambia, and they gave a thumbs up to the election, something very different from our brothers in Uganda.
Yeah, but you see the differences that in Zambia, like I've said, the processes and the results from that process were very open. The members of the public were able to access such information. The media was allowed to access information. Observers were allowed to access every stage of the process and the result. So such a verdict, surely, it was a very open and transparent democratic process. Unlike Uganda, you saw what happened, that we had a number of events leading to the election. We had media not only strangled, but severely suffocated in Uganda. You had a number of observers that withdrew their missions because the ground wasn't attainable for them to work. And so where you aren't allowed to work within the scope of your mandate, then you are not able to give an objective judgment. And therefore what you do is either you suspend judgment or you say, I'm sorry, I can't speak to the process because I wasn't part of that process, or some of these things have been held away from us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another thing before we look at the Kenyan situation is we saw how these two presidents just kept aside their differences during the handover. We never even saw that in the election for United States, which is termed as one of the best democracies we have in
even
the world.
In 202,
looking at the ceremony yesterday, it was quite colorful, and he handed over power quite smoothly. Yeah,
you remember, Ben, that there was this impression created either by the media or some guys that Edgar would not hand over power.
Yes.
So they were building a momentum or creating a script that the incumbent will never hand over power. And of course, this was an attempt to sustain a narrative in Africa that incumbents don't go. And of course, some of these discussions are well-founded. But ultimately, the nation called Zambia and its leaders have come to the conviction that leadership is about service. And I mean, today I'm at the helm to serve. Tomorrow, someone else comes in. I mean, his contract with the people of Zambia ended. They either renewed it or they didn't. In this case, they didn't renew his contract with the people of Zambia. And he understood this, that it meant time for him to leave. And so when our leaders come to the understanding that leadership is meant to serve the people who elect us to offices, if leadership is meant to understand that we are here for a time and a season, when that time comes, we go, peacefully go, and you shall have done your term. And I think this is something that should resonate in Africa.
Yes.
That the term limit must be not only respected, but when the people say they are not renewing your contract to serve them, you accept and you thank them for the time they gave you. That, I think, demonstrates servant leadership.
Indeed. I concur with you, my brother. Of course, we hope that Zambia's situation is replicated in other African countries, and including Kenya and the world as well. Let's now come over to Kenya. Elog, you are an election observation group. Exactly what is your mandate? Because we also saw you in the BBI, but we'll get to that. Okay. What exactly is your mandate?
Elog has been established as a citizen observation platform that observes the electoral process in Kenya. So we are a citizen platform whose sole mandate is to provide a forum in which citizens are able to observe their own processes. For instance, you see, elections is not only the 9th of August. Elections is also what happens before 9th of August. So elections is a process, is a cycle. So we have got the pre-election cycle, you have got the election cycle, and you have got the post-election cycle. So each of these cycles have got various events or activities that need to be observed. So we exist to be able to monitor various aspects. Is there voter registration taking place? Someone needs to observe that and be able to speak to what is happening. Is there Are there recruitment of various election actors or workers? Someone must be there. Is there voter education going on? Someone must observe. So that's the work we do. We observe each of the events that make up the elections. Yeah.
And the BBI judgment, you were part of the verification of the signatures, and of course the court declared that the process and the IEBC had contravened the law. Kind of tell us something about the BBI signature verification exercise.
I know. Well, like I said, yeah, that's true. I mean, the Elog, like I said, Ben, that Elog exists as a platform that observes the various events and activities of the electoral process. And remember, the promoters of the BBI had an eye to amend the constitution, which then was a reserve of the IEBC to be able to carry out and organize and carry out referenda in this country. Now, as part of their process, of course, once they received the bill together with the signatures, they had to be subject to verification as mandated by the law. So, of course, Elog was there. We gave our report, and we did the same thing with the Punguza Mizigo. We did that thing with Okoa Kenya, and now also together with the BBI signature verification. We raised fundamental issues, of course, and part of which, and I just let me single out about like two or three of them. First, and which this Court of Appeal spoke to, the lack of a framework to verify signatures. When you say you're verifying signatures, to verify something is to ascertain that what is before you is a true representation of what ought to be. Now, we said in our statement that the Commission lacked what we call a central depository of signatures. You know, you go to the bank, you want to sign a check. You know, not every signature goes to the bank. There's a deposit of your signature, Ben, in your bank. You sign a check. They'll be able to compare and say, oh, yeah, this signature belongs to Ben, and therefore they catch it in. So we raised the question, upon which framework, or which framework did IBC verify those signatures? They lacked that framework because there was no deposit of voters' signatures against which to compare. And of course, that has been now. So when the Court of Appeal speaks to a lack of a framework, they're actually saying that you had no means to verify these signatures. The second issue we raised, that even if we were to go to a referendum, there is a lack of a legal regime to be able to guide a referendum. That has been mentioned by the court, as you're aware. And lastly, the thing that we raised was the question. We kept on pushing for the full constitution of the IEBC. Because there were policy issues regarding a number of commissions and activities, and you've seen it's come to the fore that the court said, no, you guys were not fully constituted to make certain policy decisions, and the framework is a policy issue.
Now, still on the BBI, IEBC was supposed to carry out a referendum and election in the same time frame. According to your observation, was it possible?
Well, the IBC said, as you know, of course, it's only the IBC who can conduct both processes concurrently. So that answer would be better answered by the IBC. But from observer's point of view, these two are heavy. These two are elections, as it were, because the referendum is another election. Now, to combine those two, look at the resources that are required to undertake that exercise. Look at the logistical aspects that are required to undertake that exercise. Look at the human components and lack of a legislative framework to govern such a process. We felt that it would be an uphill task for the Commission to successfully carry out those two heavy activities within a span of 1 year. And therefore that we were saying that if the majority feel that they need to be done, then Elog would respect what the people want. If the IBC says that they're able to do it within the span of 1 year, then Elog's role is to accept that recognizing that it is the commission that is mandated to do those two, and if they say they can do it, then our work is to simply observe and speak to the process and the results as they are announced by the commission.
Yeah. Earlier when we were looking at the Zambia situation, you did mention that they trust their IEBC there. Could you blame the lack of trust with the institution of IEBC on what we experience each election year? We remain more divided after every election cycle, as opposed to what happened in Zambia.
Yeah, I think there is a problem with trust. I think the trust deficit in the commission is something that must be addressed. And I think, of course, the commission is, in my own analysis, is aware that the trust issues are always leveled against the commission, and that does not augur well for the commission. And I want to say two things about the issue of trust. First is that if you have strong systems in place, then it doesn't matter that Chebukati is the head of the commission or Benya the head of the commission. The systems work. And it seems to me that sometimes we set the commission for failure. The commission asks for X amount of money to be able to deliver, because you said, when you started this show, you said they are mandated to ensure that Kenyans have credible, peaceful, free and fair elections.
Yes.
And there are things they require to be able to undertake that and deliver on their mandate. Now, when they don't get money, for instance, they get half or a quarter of what they need, then you are setting that commission for failure. That's number one. So that we must build our institutions, build the institutions to be able to work and provide for what they need to be able to work. Now, part of the trust deficit we see in the IBC is while I agree that part of it is real, of course, the issue of servers are not opened, the issue of a number of polling POs or returning officers being compromised. I mean, that drains the deficit. But also there's another element where it is created. We set up the commission to fail when we don't give it its resources in good time. Remember, like I said, elections is not an event. It's a process, so that you want the entire cycle properly funded to be able to speak to what happens on the elections day. So like I said, it's a two-way traffic. I mean, there are problems within the commission. You saw in 2017 the power wrangles between the CEO and the chair. You saw the resignation of the commissioners. You saw what one of the commissioners said, Akombe, about what happened. So we saw what the court said about how they conducted the election of the president in 2017. So all those things tend to diminish trust to the public. In conclusion, to that question you've asked, I think what IBC must do is to invest heavily in the people, to be able to explain to the people, to explain what they're doing, where they're doing it, and why they're doing it. Remember, procurement was a big issue. Yes.
Even had the chicken
chicken scandal. So all these things have issues relating to trust, and they must be addressed. Yeah.
Indeed. And talking of funding of IEBC, they talked about 40 billion, which is the most expensive in Africa. And of course, we ranking, I don't know, is the second or the third?
Second most expensive in the world.
In the world, over 40 billion. The Treasury talked about 20, I think it's 26 billion.
Yes, yeah.
Wow, that is something else that, of course, will impede IEBC for now. And of course, we cannot always be trustful that, of course, they will be able to work with what they have. And now, at least they are fully constituted. There are a lot of challenges, of course, which we will be looking at as well. Do you believe they should be doing exactly what Zambia did? You've talked about if we trust our institution, we fund them well, and now you've talked about resources and investing in trust. Of course, we have to touch the figures.
I know.
Very expensive.
I agree with you, Ben, that our elections are the most expensive elections. One of the most expensive elections in the world, and I agree that we probably we need to audit our electoral processes, and especially ask ourselves the question: why do we spend the money we spend? In Kenya, it costs a voter over $2,500 500 shillings in Kenya. It's over $25. It cost a voter $25.
That is over 2,500
yes, yeah. That is very expensive.
Yeah.
So you ask the question, why are our elections expensive? And it goes down to trust issues. We have invested, I mean, you've heard it said before, that the number of security features in our ballot paper.
Again, trust.
Trust is so that we want to cure trust by investing much money in it, which is a problem. And like I said, that if we can invest, and it goes back to my point, if we can invest in making our institutions stronger and providing for what is required and ensure that the right people manage those institutions, then trust is automatic, I guess. And then, of course, so that even the issues of trying to invest so much money, like I've said about security features in our, but I mean, like, you know, if you compared the security features on our currency with the ballot paper has more features than our currency. So that means you can see where our heart is.
Yes.
So that I think moving forward, it is a big issue of investing in our institutions. But like I've said, Ben, also, let me say this: that it is not only the IEBC, by the way, that is the only institution that is supposed to help in ensuring that Kenyans have free and fair elections. There are multiple institutions, and you mentioned them already, I think, before we started the show.
Yes.
You have got the judiciary. You have got the office of the Registrar of Political Parties.
Yes.
You have got political parties themselves that are also critical players in the electoral process. If you mess up nominations, you mess up elections. If you field bad candidates that don't meet the threshold as prescribed in our national values, tell me what kind of leaders you're going to produce at the ballot. I mean, they say, you know, show me the leader you elect and I'll show you who you are. So the political parties, the office of the Registrar of Political Parties, there are a number of institutions that should be working together to ensure that the process meets the expectation that is enshrined in our constitution.
Indeed, and it's good you've mentioned a partnership from various quarters. Yesterday, the Director of Public Prosecution, Nudin Haji, questioned Parliament with ensuring we have legislation that bars leaders who have integrity questions. You think they're going to see the light of day in Parliament? We have seen you talked about 9 governors have already been charged, but they are still in office. We have a lot of MPs who have integrity issues and cases in courts. Do you think that could cure at least the integrity question that we have
if we put proper and stringent legislation, then it not only would help that, but it also will deter candidates or aspirants with questionable integrity issues from vying. In absence of such a strong legislation, every person would want to vie, and they are answering to serious questions, and the law protects them. Well, I agree the law should protect you, but also the law should also protect the people as well. And of course, if you remember, it's been a big problem that you look at Chapter 6 of our Constitution and you look at the Leadership and Integrity Act. I mean, it was what we have in the Act is not strong enough to hold any accused accountable. And so that's why the DDP is trying to, I mean, he has realized there is a need to strengthen that law to be able to speak to the spirit of the law, because that is lacking in its implementation. So I think if Parliament listens and agrees to such provisions, then I think it can work.
And also the same, when IEBC was issuing its 2022 roadmap, and especially when it came to the referendum and the general polls, all the stakeholders were there. I remember the DPP, the EAC, the judiciary. Actually, the chief registrar, Anna Amadi, is the one who went there on behalf of the CJ. And they talked about and the national cohesion. They're always talking about when we go to elections, we're going to work together, ensure there's no violence, ensure everything is working. But look at our election cycle. There's violence, there's mistrust, there's election malpractices. And could that be the reason as to why Nurdin Haji, the Director of Public Prosecution, talked about ensuring we have laws that actually deter and look at the integrity of our leaders before we put them in office?
Yeah, definitely, Ben, I agree. I think part of the problem that we continue to have in our, I think that they are saying that the 2022 election could either be a repeat of 2007 or could be a replica of what happened in 2002 or in between. So you have got a section of Kenyans who are thinking that 2022 will be violent. There are those who think that 2022 will be peaceful. There are those who think that 2022 will be in between. Now, the cycle of violence in every election, then, in every election, violence has characterized our elections. In every election, even by-elections. Of course, see what happened in the recent by-elections. And by-elections have told us to prepare for a possible violent elections in 2022. Now, what causes the violence in elections? A number of reasons. Of course, there are economic reasons that cause violence, but there are also some of them politically instigated. A leader utters a word, incites this community against that community, this person against that person. And so when you have leaders who are inciting communities against communities, or ethnic groups against ethnic groups, or a section of population against the other one, that leader, and of course, going back to the topic we're discussing about integrity, shouldn't be fit even to be elected. Now, when you have a legal regime, and especially those that are working towards ensuring that such kind of people are not only tried, but also are prevented from running in an office, if that regime is weak, then you will not bring to justice or to book such utterances because you lack the tooth to bite. One of the things that we have and a number of stakeholders have said, can we have even the national integration, the NCIC Act, the National Commission and the National Cohesion and Integration Commission Act must be reviewed as well, because you speak about hate speech. We live in the same country. Hate speech is a very difficult aspect to try in court because there are many loopholes to that act. So together with other legislations, there's need for us to move with speed, to look at all these pieces of legislation that are meant to bring order and sanity in our politics, so that when we move towards 2022, we have proper systems that can hold everyone accountable, including politicians.
Indeed. To IEBC, you've been an election observation group for several years. And
it's our 10th year.
10 years?
Yeah.
Oh, indeed. That's good. And you're also on the 2022.
Yes.
What systematic challenges have you encountered IEBC faces each and every time for the last 10 years?
Okay.
And what can be done to cure this cancer?
Let me just mention a few.
Yes.
First is underfunding of the commission, and I think that's a big issue. You have a budget for the commission which is rarely met. As I speak with you right now, there are outstanding bills that IBC hasn't paid from the 2017 election.
As we speak?
As we speak. And they're moving into a new election with accruing bills of 2017. Now, when you underfund a commission, then you set it up for failure, like I've said. That's number one. So proper funding should be budgeted for and provided for by the IEBC, and of course from the public coffers. The second problem that has continued to bewilder IEBC is trust deficit, which comes from a number of things within the IEBC and without the IEBC. The infighting of the commission, within the commission itself, the CEO and the commission, among the commissioners themselves, they have a big issue. When you have two people fighting, if two people are fighting in the same house, there's a problem. So we don't trust you because you say something now, you say something that time. It doesn't seem to augur very well for the country. So those issues, and we have suggested as Elog, part of our recommendations, that the apparent power angles within the commission should be addressed. Either the commission then becomes the person you hold responsible, or you hold the CEO responsible. You can't hold both. You cannot do both. One person, the buck must stop with someone, and that someone must be having the legal mandate that allows them to be able to access some of the information that they need to speak to. The other thing I could say about the IEBC is apparent interferences from outside itself. Some people call it state capture, some people call it elite capture, but precisely because of the mandate of the commission, it is the only commission that we've had the word independent commission. So we want it to be independent. So the IEBC must always strive to live by its name of independence, so that it does not appear to be playing a tune for someone else. It shouldn't appear. It shouldn't even be seen to appear that it does that, so that it remains that independent. But of course, the other thing, I think there are two more things that I wanted to say. First is because we have always appointed the commissioners late into the day of election. These guys came 8 months to 2017 election. Yes. Now we have 4 guys coming 9 months, 10 months or 11 months to this election. So you see that we have a tendency of not making the commission be really in place in good time. Remember, we had the Kriegler Commission and its recommendations that we need to have in place at least 2 years before a fully functional commission. We have never done that. So we continue to bring in commissioners very late in the day. By the time they learn the job, elections are already over. And guys, so we have a big issue with that.
Yeah, and still going back to the Kriegler report, 2 years or at least a year.
2 years.
We are deep into the year because, of course, now we have less than a year. But something that was also raised by the High Court and the Court of Appeal is that IEBC had not, talking about another BBI, had not carried out continuous mass voter registration. That is something that has not yet kicked in as we speak. Will we be able to beat the deadlines and ensure that, as you said, independent, we have free, fair and credible elections?
There are two things, Ben, here. First, there is the question of continuous voter registration that should be taking place every day at the constituency IBC offices in every constituency. Then there is these targeted or mass voter registration drives. Now, again, it comes back to resources, of course. I think now the IBC should come and come out and tell the public that even since 2017 elections, how many new voters have registered? How many Kenyans have registered since 2017? Can we demonstrate that the IBC has continuously been registering voters? That's number one. Number two, there is the question of mass voter registration, which again requires it requires resources.
Yes.
It's not cheap to have mass voter registration. Remember in 2017, towards 2017, we had 2 of them. We had the first and the second mass voter registration drives. So if we can facilitate IEBC, then we can beat the deadline.
Yes, and we are less than a year, and on 15th of August, that is around 10 days ago, Transparency International, your organization was there as well.
CMD.
CMD was also there.
Greco.
Yes. You raised issues when it comes to the election, the management of finances when it comes to election and campaigns. Kindly shed light on that.
Well, we raised issues when we saw that the Committee of Parliament gave its verdict and said that they rejected the limits that were imposed by not imposed but gazetted by the IEBC, of course. But we had a big reservation and said that we must regulate the use of money, because again, if we are to be citizens of this country, we must also adhere to the Constitution and its provisions. The IEBC is mandated to regulate the amount of money used by by political parties and their candidates. So it's already vested in our Constitution. Number two, we have never, you remember in 2017, we never regulated we never used regulated the money in 2013 election. We never did the same in 2017, and possibly in 2022. So we were saying, as observers and as people interested in that topic, that we must regulate the use of money. I mean, we can have a discussion about the limits that were set, but the money must be regulated. We must allow the IEBC to regulate, monitor the use of money, because misuse of money, like I said, money has got twin potential in politics. It can aid in your emergence as a leader, but it can also ensure that we get the wrong people, because they're using their muscles in terms of money to come into office. So someone must be watching, and especially illicit monies that come to someone's pocket. Are we using money to reward a number of candidates who then are expected to give, kickbacks at the end of the day? So someone must watch what monies come into the campaigns and how they are used and who uses them. So we say that we could have a discussion about the limits that were set, but let us not refuse the operationalization of those spending limits. Let us move into this election of 2022 with that regulations in place.
We are hoping at least there will not be money laundering that has been suspected in so many African states when it comes to election. On 18th of June, the Commission identified 6 strategic points that they were going to be looking at to ensure that the elections were, and perhaps to touch some of them, talking about strengthening corporate governance, strengthening the legal framework, effect conduct on election, public outreach, of which public participation was mentioned also at the Court of Appeal, and equitable representation and strengthening strategic operations. Is this the miracle cure for the challenges facing IEBC when it comes to elections?
I honestly think, Ben, if those issues are addressed, we will take a very big step towards the right direction. It may not cure everything, but it will give us the minimum satisfaction that our process is fair. Address the legal loopholes, reach out to the public as much as you can. Your corporate governance addressed. I think those issues, if IBC is serious about them, we'll see a very big step in the positive direction.
Let's now shift focus to the Registrar of Political Parties. A lot of Kenyans, a couple of weeks or a couple of months ago, they've found themselves in parties they have never registered or even ascribed to. You find you're in Party A, but you ascribe to Party B. Could that pose a challenge when it comes to the election that we are headed to? It will indeed pose a big challenge. And of course, as you're aware, that issue was a public debate. And of course, now the question, who owns then our details? How did I find myself registered in Party X, for instance, without my knowledge? Again, it comes about the trust to institutions. And like I said, some of the trust deficits are occasioned from such kind of things that are happening. And I'm happy that the Office of the Registrar took that seriously, and that issue was addressed. And I'm sure that moving forward, we don't want to have such things happening. But the timelines are quite tight. Looking at if we'll have a mass voter registration. We also have the cleaning up of the records and the register. And you're still in campaigns, and we still have to do the elections in August. The timelines are quite tight. They are tight, but they can be done. Okay. They are tight, they can be done. Because of course the law provides timelines within which we must stop registering voters. Then it provides for cleaning up of the register. It then provides also
members of the public to interrogate the register. And even Elog, as Elog, we will also conduct an independent audit of that register to ascertain whether it is complete, whether it is efficient and accurate. So those timelines, if we respect them, as we've said earlier on, if we provide money in good time, allow the commission to conduct a comprehensive voter registration that must also be targeted, because we've learned from our observation that there is historical pattern of some voters disenfranchised. So we want that, we have actually recommended that the mass voter registration should also be targeted to be able to reach out to more women, reach out to more youth, reach out to people living with disabilities, reach out to minorities and marginalized communities. So even as we do the mass voter registration, it should also be targeted. Now, if we provide enough resources in good time, allow the commission to do the mass voter registration, allow it to clean out the register, allow the citizens to interrogate the register and speak to the register, then allow independent organizations or agencies to also interrogate the register. We still have a good time, and the register is a big thing. It's a big thing, and I think it must be, and I'm happy that the Court of Appeal singled that out as something that must, and I'm sure IBC is taking it very seriously.
I'm quite sure now that it will be fully constituted, but they will have to actually move with speed, even working even 24 hours. Let's get back to figures and trust issues. What is making the Kenyan model of election become one of the most expensive in the world and Africa as well is the printing of the ballot papers. We had issues. Do you remember the chicken gate scandal, which has never actually been finalized right here in Kenya? It was finalized there in UK, but we are yet to see heads roll in Kenya. We print our own currency here in Kenya, de la Rue. Why can't we opt for printing of those ballot papers right here in the country so that we may be able to bring the cost down? If we can trust ourselves with money.
But I agree with you. I mean, it's one of addressing the cost of elections in this country. And I can assure you, if we were to print our ballot papers in this country, the cost of the cost would come down by probably half, or probably by a quarter, if you will. But again, the trust issues. Imagine if we were to know why they're printing the ballot papers in this country. You will see men in green going there and messing up. Our appetite for bad manners. We have a very high appetite for bad manners as Kenyans, and that bad manners is permeating every aspect of our life, including politics. But I think ultimately we must. I think for me, this is what I want to say, Ben. If we can make political office less lucrative, you'll have no major issue. Today, we've made political office to be held with high esteem. It has serious benefits that the guys holding those offices are enjoying. So then people fight for it, including going to ban even a building that they know is printing the papers. If I can't get it, you won't get it either. Because we've made I mean, of course, our political class are one of the best paid in Africa, of course. Yes. So when you make it a lucrative business, if you will, then people will fight for it. Yeah, but it will be a nice consideration. I've had the commission say that even the servers will be hosted here in Kenya. And if they can host the server in Kenya, they can print it in Kenya. Why not?
And we'll bring the cost down.
Down by, I can assure you, by a quarter. Not less than a quarter.
I'm looking at the IEBC calendar where, according to IEBC election operations, plan nomination for presidential candidate will take place between May 30th and June 10th. Of course, if you are a civil servant and you want to vie for any positions, you have until February the 9th. So you have a couple of months. Looking at this whole calendar, do you think we are going to beat that time? There's so much to do. I'm looking at this. There's so much. I
think we can. The only interruption, in my view, could be two. First, you've seen the push to let the Chebukati and his team go home. They are section the political elite.
Yes.
Now, if you were to send away the commission home again, that means we'll now go back to the challenges of quorum again, new, I don't know, it's just going to be dirty, as it were. So if the present commission were to be sent home, that will affect those timelines. The second issue is what I told about the issue of resources. If we don't avail those resources to the commission in good time, again, those timelines will be affected. The third issue is last-minute amendment to the election law, which, as you are aware, we have always, like I said, we have always done the same thing every now and then. We change laws to the last minute. Now, when you change the rules of the game, very close to a game, you confuse everyone. Yes. You confuse the players, you confuse the referee, you confuse the spectators and supporters in a game. Yeah. The rules of the game must be clear, must be predictable, must be transparent, long way before the game is nearer. We know what offside is. We know what it means to score a goal. We know. So if you change those rules very close to an election or to a game, you confuse everything. So again, that's a major. You saw in 2017, yes, the laws were changed the last minute. Every actor of that election was put to confusion. So if we can address those three issues, I think we can meet those timelines by the IBC.
Now we are staring into another bigger problem. The commissioners will, after we are done with the 2022 election, when we are just about the 2027 election, there will be actually their term will have lapsed.
The three.
We will now have, yes, we will now have another challenge, because the two who are remaining plus the chairman will have already completed their term. Are we staring at another problem, though in the next 5 years?
I don't think we will. If now we have a framework which was ascended to law by the president, hence now bringing this forward.
Yes.
Now, if that framework is followed, I don't think we'll have a problem. There was only a problem, one, when we never, you see, all the commission, in the previous elections, all the commissioners came on one day. As in, they came, all of them at once.
So they have to leave
at once.
Yes.
When they leave at once, you have no memory. You have no continuity. That has been addressed somehow in this dispensation, because now we have got the Chebukati and the other two guys who will be leaving after 2023. Then you have got these new ones who are coming. Give them 5 years from the time of the appointment. So that means that by 2023, the law should be self-effecting. So that then a process is put in place to replace the three. Yeah, so
but we haven't instituted that yet.
No, but I think by I think we have, because that's how we went. I had constituted the panel, invited applicants, they shortlisted, names were given to the president. Now the parliament vetted them yesterday. I think that's a good start.
Okay,
it's a good start.
I will really tie that good start, as you've put it, to what the president did, and it was pointed out by the Court of Appeal, is that there were vacancies at the IEBC 3 years ago. The president had 1 week to announce that the positions were vacant, but did not do that. And now we are facing challenges in IEBC, and we are just adding challenges that IEBC are facing. This is another challenge.
I agree. And that's why I say that if we could, of course, there were a number of, people, guys offered different views, whether there was a proper legislative framework to bring in a new commission in place that was discussed, or the president just sat on that law and didn't want to institute a selection panel that was also discussed. But that as it may, we already have a bill. The bill that was speaking to the selection of a panel was signed by the president. Now it's a law. So my hope is that even as we move into future elections, until that time that this law is amended, it will be respected as is, and once a vacant position has been declared vacant, we must move with speed to replace the commissioners.
But these challenges have faced IEBC since the days of Kevoito, when it was ECK. Then we went to the interim independent election.
The ISAC commission. So we had ISAC 1, ISAC 2.
Yes, we had 1 and 2.
Yeah, and then we have Chebukati.
The same challenges. It's more or less seems like a...
I agree. I mean, since 1997, let me just say, since the advent of multi-party democracy in Kenya, we have always changed the commission. I think Kenya is one of those few countries in the world that in every election cycle we change. We think the problem is the commission. And therefore, so if the commission is the problem, you send them away. Again, there is no, like I've said, we cannot be changing the commissions every election cycle. Then that means something's not working. Something's not working. You can't be the ones changing every time we change the commission. And that can't be allowed to happen. There must be consistency, there must be respect over these institutions, and let us show that we have a process that brings in place good people to head this, to be in charge. And of course avoid I mean, Kenya, in Kenya, elections are really, really high stakes, as you're aware. And today you wake up and say Chebukati must go home. Tomorrow you say Chebukati is good, depending on who is on whose side. We cannot dismiss the commission at will. It can't happen. So we must respect those institutions that we have created. If they're not working for us, then we change those institutions. If you want elections to be conducted by another body, please bring in through a legal process, bring those new changes, but don't kick them out at will because you are not happy with what they said.
Yes, we are always changing after every election cycle, and it's supposed to be independent, as we say. IBC is the only commission that has the independent. Indeed, we are coming back with this discussion. I can see Zeki Setet, you say you are locked. Remember, we are also live on Twitter and also on YouTube. In case you joined us, this is News Check, and we are looking at Roadmap 2022, the election preparedness. Are we set? Of course, IEBC is almost fully constituted, one of the major challenge when it comes to elections in the election cycle we have here in Kenya. We will be back with more. Welcome back. This is KBC News Check, and in case you just joined us, we are looking at the roadmap to 2022 election. Of course, IEBC always on the receiving end, but we are hoping that being the actually the most expensive election in Africa and ranking highly, the second in the world, it will be the best without the current violent cycle and without all the challenges that are actually met during election. And I'm joined by Elog Programs Director Marcus Agenga, who is actually trying to make us understand what happens even behind the cycle before you even cast your vote. And before the break, there's some during the break, there's some issues we were looking at, and you do remember there are some let's say rhetoric or some words that politicians say, and actually they aid in making the political scene a little bit vile or a little bit bitter. When talk about I can move to court, I can move to parliament to try and change the election date. It's a discussion that has been there for the last couple of weeks, and the president, the day before yesterday, talked about, no, I'm exiting office after I'm done. These are some of the things that aid in making the political temperatures a little bit bitter.
I agree, Ben, and I'm happy that the president, in his address the day before yesterday, tackled on that topic. Honestly, we shouldn't be seen to having this discussion or even entertaining the thought that elections should be postponed. We shouldn't. And of course they are giving a number of reasons. If you had the discussion before, some are saying the president hasn't served his 5 terms because he was sworn in much more later than he was elected, so he needs to serve his 5 terms. They are saying, you see, we're in the middle of a calamity. The COVID-19 pandemic is a serious issue that has disrupted our lives. So in the middle of a pandemic, the law envisions, they say, a possibility of postponing an election. Thirdly, they are speaking about boundaries. Some constituencies or boundaries need to be reviewed. So if we were to go to this election without reviewing those boundaries... Yeah,
boundaries, delimitation.
Delimitation is a big issue they are raising. But now, those 3 issues, however justified they may be, do not warrant a postponement of an election. Let me tell you, on the issue that we are battling a pandemic, we've had countries in Africa that have held elections. We've just speak about Zambia.
Yes.
Just held this election in the middle of COVID-19. You just had Uganda, our neighbor here. You had Ethiopia doing the same. You had, even back in our country, the commission has conducted by elections.
Yes.
A number of...
actually gearing up for a referendum.
A referendum, of course. So the idea of COVID pandemic, while it's a big issue, of course, there are protocols that IBC has put in place, and we observed them when we were in those by-elections, and we were satisfied that IBC has put in place good protocols that are be able to contain the spread of coronavirus in those polling stations. Of course, moving forward, IBC will have to come up with a proper and more sustained measures and structures that, by-elections are smaller, they're fewer, so you can be able to be keen. But when you have a national election like we will have, it's going to call the commission to work even stronger. And hence, you see that the amount of money they were suggesting to buy the PPEs during the by-election. So I think that's a big issue. But we shouldn't entertain the thought of postponing an election, because the contract that we have given our leaders is 5 years. When the term goes, they go home.
Okay. And perhaps before we wrap up, what are some of the challenges? Or perhaps I'm informed that we are supposed to be headed, remember CS Magoha had organized a presser together with the NCCK in matters actually at the General Assembly at the Jumia Conference right here. Let's first of all hear what he has to say, then we wrap up.
2022. And the footprint of 100% transition is already there, because we have a 10.28% increase between last year and this year. So all those busybodies who are self-proclaimed experts, I think the people should ignore them. Our job is to continue to ensure that all children who complete Standard 8 transit to Form 1. And beyond that, any child that has been out of school for whatever reason is mopped back to school. We started this exercise 2 days ago on Monday. In the coast, I still have Dr. Sarah Ruto based in Kilifi, and I have Dr. Gaturu based in Kwale, and I have Adan Duale, Director of Field Operations, based in Mombasa. And the reason for this is that the percentages for the coast are still very low, averaging between 70 and 60. Before I talk about what we are doing today, I want to give you a bird's eye view of the counties that have reached 100% in order to remove the myth. I know from my head, without even looking, that the Nyeri County is at number 1, and it is not just at 100%. Nyeri County is at 102%, which means it has mopped up all the children and also welcomed children from other places. You also have Nyamira County in this region, which has reached 100%. And we are grateful for the leadership of government, both Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Interior. For Mandera, which is in the far north, has reached 100.14. We are also very grateful for the leadership in Bomet, which has reached 100. And then the others, which are between 95 and 99, are Nyandarua, Kisii, and Wajir, another one which you would have imagined is not doing very well, has actually reached 99.82%. And not to bore you, I will just tell you, Homa Bay, which is also from this county, together with Kirinyaga, Migori, and Kiambu, are all above 96%. Therefore, for us, as public servants, ours is to serve everybody. The reason I chose to come here this morning is because Kisumu is still at 82%. And I knew that Kisumu is at 82% because of the slums, where you have very intelligent children. I found 2 girls here with over 350 marks. And we are going to make sure that they go to a government school, and we shall provide a scholarship for them. We have also found another gentleman. What was your score?
255.
Yes. No, you are not the one. I don't know you. When Mjinga kutoka wapi?
299.
What was your score?
299.
I've got another boy of 299. We are taking him to Kisumu Boys, and another girl who will be taken to a day school. But over and above this, I want to say this, Mr. Machocho, and the Ministry of Interior officials headed by the County Commissioner here, represented by the Deputy County Commissioner, that this is an exercise that must continue until every county reaches 100%. I would like to re-emphasize, without the mockery of the people that are saying it is far much better for our children to be in school than to be loitering in the slums. Government is providing money, and I want to say this for the purposes of disabusing the minds of the people. And we were in London with His Excellency the President and many other countries when we were raising money for poor children. And Kenya is the one that is providing the highest amount of capitation for education in the whole of Africa. So do not listen to the evil naysayers, because they actually don't know what they are talking about. We shall continue to do this for our children, because children don't belong to political parties, and we must serve them irrespective of where they come from. From here, I intend to visit the slums of Kiandutu and Witemere probably on Monday or Tuesday, because the children are breaking for half term. You will be asking, why am I taking these ones to school today? They must be registered and given uniform. And then when they break and report to school on Monday as the bona fide students. Thank you very much.
What is the timeline for the mop-up? Because schools are breaking for half term.
The timeline for the mop-up now, if they were not breaking up, and you know why they are breaking up early, is because the term has been shortened because of COVID, isn't it? But we will work with what we have. So, by the grace of God, when the schools reopen again, my team and everybody else will continue. We have people in Nairobi, we have people in all parts of the country, and I would like to ask those education people and quality assurance people and TSA people who are in those counties that are already 100%, if you are in a neighboring county that has not reached 100%, can you move to that county to help mop up? We shall mop up until it is 100%. Thank you very much.
The straight talking, tough talking education CS Professor George Magoha from Nyalenda in Kisumu, actually in the spirit of ensuring 100% transition from primary to 100 to secondary schools. He has ensured that he has put his officers in strategic places to ensure that pupils who are eligible to be in school are eligible. Talked about counties like Kirinyaga County doing quite well, and Kiambu as well. Of course, that we will be touching a little bit deeper on that with my second guest, who we will be talking to in the next couple of minutes. But before we do that, let's wrap up this discussion. And I'm joined, of course, by Marcus from Elog. Of course, when it comes to matters election observation, you have been there for the last 10 years. What are some of the challenges that observers experience, especially during elections? We know in Uganda, we just saw them because the international observers were kicked out. What challenges have you faced during the elections and, of course, the by-elections that you have been observing?
Of course.
And the same, please kindly touch on the national values and ethos. It was mentioned pronouncedly during the BBI debate, but
let me start with the national values, of course. And this relates to the topic we're discussing about leadership and integrity. How come that we have a number of leaders who appear, who have been summoned to answer to some of the integrity issues? Where were we when they were being elected? Who elected them into office? And I can assure some of them will come back in various positions in the next government after 2022. So now, I think we need, as a country, to normalize these national values that we have in our constitution. Not so much is being spoken by political leaders about those values.
Yes.
There is, you'll hear the issues about economy, the issue about education, the issue about religion, but no one is investing some sort of an ethical paradigm shift within the population. There's a national, like I said, where is the rage? You hear corruption charges, you hear leaders accused of corruption, of aiding in killing fellow human beings, in sustaining lies and all the sorts of bad behavior. Where is the rage? Where is the national rage? Why are Kenyans not getting unhappy? Why are we not unhappy the way the country is moving, or the way in which our leaders are moving? And that takes us back to the national values. And therefore, the call here is to look at those values, espouse them, and live them. Because if each one of us takes those values seriously and live by them, the way we take a Bible or Quran and live by them. At a civil sphere, those values become our Bible or the Quran.
Indeed.
And therefore, just urge our guys to take that seriously. But back to the problems or the challenges that we have faced. I think for Elog, it's been one of the issues is about security of our observers. We've had observers arrested.
Yes.
Before, being thought to be representing a political candidate, We had an observer killed in Kisumu in 2017. That was the lowest point for Elog, because of politically instigated clashes. We've had issues about trust about observers, of course.
Yes.
You saw in 2017, the courts ruled that the president was not validly elected and therefore ordered a fresh election. The observers, it was reported by you guys that the observers gave a clear verdict. So we were bashed. So when they were saying observers are not wanted here, they didn't spare us, even though the call was more to international observers, but we are all observers at the end of the day. So there is a public perception that observers, and of course I speak about Elog, that people are quite not understood the work we do.
No.
What is the role of observer? What are we able to do and what can't we do? At what point are we able to, for instance, the transmission of results, for instance, at what point is an observer able to speak to the transmission? So there is still misunderstanding around the role of observer and the work we can do moving forward. But I think that as we move forward, we can discuss some of those challenges and what we are putting in place to address them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you indeed, Marcus Agenga from Elog is the program's manager there. And of course, we were putting into perspective election and how prepared are we as a country? Less than 12 months. Well, that's where we put a cap on that discussion. But when we come back, we will be talking to George Mugo, an educationist. Let's look at the progress of the school calendar. Of course, this is the first time that we've been seeing the shortest holiday, because we expect by the year 2022, the election calendar that was disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, we will be up and running just as we were doing before the COVID struck. Thank you indeed so much for watching, but don't go away. We'll be right back.
Okay.